Welcome to Santa Clarita Weekly, where we cover all things local in Santa Clarita Valley every Saturday morning at 9 on KQRU 107.9. Join hosts Tim Haddock and Sage Rafferty as they uncover the latest news, events, sports highlights, and more, keeping you connected and engaged with what matters most in our hometown.
Welcome back for another edition of Santa Clarita Weekly with Tim Haddock and Sage Rafferty. I'm Sage, he's Tim. You can listen to us on the radio at KQRU 107.9 FM on Saturday mornings at 9 o'clock. We're also in TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram, and you can find us online at santaclaritastar.com. So this week, we're going to be talking about the Chamber of Commerce is scheduled to hold their City Council District 1 forum this week. I believe they're also having assembly candidates and congressional candidates at the same forum, but they did not invite one of the three candidates vying for the seat. So we're going to interview Bryce Jepsen and ask him the questions he may have gotten if he had been invited to the forum. So the Hart District Teachers Association, the HDTA, announced its endorsement of two candidates for the Hart District Governing Board in the upcoming 2024 general election. That's Gloria Mercado-Fortine for Trustee Area 1 and Eric Anderson for Trustee Area 4. The Golden Valley High football team is undefeated at 2-0, while the Valencia football team has lost 2 in a row and is 0-2 for the first time since 2015. The Dodgers won 2 of 3 games against the Baltimore Orioles and took the first 2 games against the Diamondbacks, but pitcher Clayton Kershaw is injured. The Rams are preparing for their season opener against the Lions, and their defense will be without Ernest Jones, who was traded. So let's start out and talk about the Hart Teachers Association. So Hart District Teachers Association, also called the HDTA, announced its endorsement of 2 candidates for the Hart District Governing Board in the upcoming 2024 general election. In a press release, the HDTA said that they interviewed all of the candidates, and after careful vetting and consideration, they've decided to endorse Gloria Mercado-Fortine for Trustee Area 1 and Eric Anderson for Trustee Area 4. So Gloria Mercado-Fortine is running to unseat incumbent Linda Storley. Dr. Akash Ahuja, a psychiatrist, is also running for the seat. Dr. Akash Ahuja is being supported by Moms for Liberty, an anti-LGBTQ hate group. So Gloria Mercado-Fortine is a former member of the William S. Hart High School Governing Board. She was defeated in 2015 by Linda Storley. So this year, the Hart Board has been at the center of controversy with negotiations with the HDTA over a new contract and a push by the right-wing organization Moms for Liberty to install a parental notification, also called a force outing policy in Santa Clarita high schools. So Eric Anderson is an educator who teaches physicians about implantable medical devices. So Anderson is challenging Aaron Wilson over in Trustee Area 4, who was appointed to the Hart School Board after the resignation of James Webb. So Bryce Jepsen is a board member of a nonprofit here in Santa Clarita that aims to create a vibrant and inclusive Santa Clarita Valley for the LGBTQIA plus community. He has a master's degree in history from CSUN, and he is running for City Council in District 1, facing off against Patsy Ayala and Tim Burkhart. So Jepsen is making history as the first openly LGBTQ candidate to run for Santa Clarita City Council in the city's history. Bryce was recently told that he was not invited to participate in the City Council forum held by the Santa Clarita Valley Chamber of Commerce. So we decided to have him on the show and ask him the questions he would probably receive in a City Council forum. So let's listen to that right now. All right. Well, thank you, Bryce, for coming on the show. And I'm sorry that you were not invited to the Chamber forum. Did they say why you weren't invited?
They said I wasn't invited because I didn't manage to fundraise $10,000 by the end of June, even though my campaign didn't start until July.
Oh, okay. So they're basically they were going to have those two all along and no other candidates, from what I understand. But so I'm going to ask you a series of questions anyway, because we're going to, you're on the show, so we're going to ask you a series of questions that you probably would be asked if you were at a city council forum. So can you tell me, what motivated you to run for city council, and what do you hope to accomplish if elected?
I intend to lead the way into turning promises into action in my community. Growing up, I grew in a very poor neighborhood of Newhall that always felt neglected within the city itself. I watched my father work two jobs. He worked for Delta Printing and delivering newspapers at night. My mother gave up her dream job as a teacher in order to work at a grocery store just to give me and my brother health insurance. I always felt we were always one emergency away from losing our house and everything we loved. But this is the reality of many people in my community, not just me. While the city is busy fighting over what businesses they want to include in the city, uh, I've seen the lines grow longer for the food pantries. I've seen how communities are exposed to the toxic waste. I've experienced how doctor's visits are few and far between, and how affordable housing is scarce in the city. And these issues didn't pop up overnight. It's been an ongoing issue for the past few years. There are currently symptoms of the city council dictating instead of leading with the community. Uh, they stigmatize poor families, deny the rights of LGBTQ individuals, and refuse to ask how we can help. I plan on drawing a line in the sand because I am a member of the communities that are threatened. I want to fight for all of the residents, not just those with the deepest pockets.
Okay, can you describe your experience and qualifications that make you the best candidate for this position?
Yes. As secretary and now president of one of the two queer nonprofits in the city, I have years of experience in community building and advocacy. I know what it takes to fight to build change in the city. And I know that through my nonprofit work, I have found how to compromise and build solutions and face problems that are entirely for everyone in the community. I bring a community-based approach to my vision to Santa Clarita rather than being beholden to any political party. I do not believe in toting the political line because at the end of the day, our job and service is to help everyone. I want to hear all the diverse opinions because that's what I found works best in my nonprofit work.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you about that, about diverse communities. So how do you plan to engage with and represent diverse communities here in Santa Clarita?
Yes. I believe in including everyone in the process. I grew up in Newhall. I experienced the same hardships as my neighbors and everyone else in the community. And on top of that, I feel the economic strain. I am part of this community and have been for my entire life. An example is recently when I was canvassing, people were always talking to me about how they need basic public street safety, so stop signs and speed bumps. She pressed the city for it, and the city always denies because they don't have enough funds. This is just an easy and solution and example of how I want to include people. I want to walk around, talk. I want to include everyone in the conversation because I want to lead with the community, not lord over the community.
Okay, so top three priorities for Santa Clarita. Can you name those top three priorities and tell us how you plan to address them?
So one of the big ones currently for toxic waste is the Chiquita Canyon landfill. Uh, it's part of my comprehensive climate action plan for the city. We are 10% responsible for what's been happening at the Chiquita Canyon landfill, and I believe we should put at least, at the bare minimum, 10% effort into either helping clean it up or close it completely. Uh, I want to fight the ongoing battle against book bans. I want to serve on the library committee to ensure that we enact policies that stop the book bannings from groups like the Moms of Liberty and MACA extremists, because every citizen in the city has a right to expression and a right to information. And I want to fight for affordable housing because people deserve a chance to live and work in the same city. And when people live and work in the same city, they bring about more tax revenue and a happier life.
Okay. So, how are you going to ensure that development projects balance growth with preserving the character and environment of Santa Clarita?
So currently, I love what the city council's doing with the mall. They're turning it into a multi-use development where you have housing, shopping, and like parking, and that includes public transportation to get there and back. Uh, I firmly believe in reusing our unused office spaces and just unused buildings to maybe morph into housing. I believe that we have way more than unnecessary space that we can just fill, and then we can always morph them back if needed.
Okay, so let's talk about public transportation. So, what's your plan to improve public transportation and reduce traffic congestion in the city?
First and foremost, I just want to increase availability of public transportation. The current wait time is around an hour long. We need just basically more buses to bring down the wait times. But also, I was interested in maybe introducing a dash bus system like LA has, where one goes from just point A to point B with two buses, so it's constantly rotating. So we constantly have a way to get from like Newhall to Canyon Country or Newhall to the industrial district on Avenue Stanford so that people can get to work.
Okay, so um, we have a lot of different opinions here in Santa Clarita, a lot of different, people in the political spectrum and people with different backgrounds. So, how are you going to handle criticism or differing opinions, especially when they come from constituents that let's say you get elected and you represent those constituents and they disagree with something? How are you going to handle that?
Uh, I'm used to it as a president and secretary of a nonprofit. I've received death threats myself, so I kind of know that there's like a grit to it. Uh, my job is not to fight with people, but to make a better change with the community. I love hearing all opinions, but I believe in that you need to have a constructive criticism, not an outright attack. Uh, Personally, for me, I love to debate, even if it's just between, like, if it's me and someone with a differing opinion, because I know their opinion comes from a place of value. They have that value in opinion for a reason, and they want to tell me why. People just like to be heard, and I want to show that.
Okay, well, I think those are all the questions, but I will, do you have any closing comments for us?
I just want to be a city council person that leads with the community, not over it. We've seen for 20, 30 years now that the city council's interested in dictating instead of leading, and we need to become back beholden to the people of the city. And I just hope my candidacy that people agree with it and we fight against the mobs of liberty and MAGA extremists.
All right. Well, thank you, Bryce. I appreciate you coming on the show, and best of luck to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
You are listening to KQRU 107.9 FM in Santa Clarita. You can listen to Santa Clarita Weekly on Saturday mornings at 9 and on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you listen to podcasts. So I'm going to turn it over to Tim to talk to us about Santa Clarita Valley High School football. Tim?
Okay, so the second week of the high school football season finished, and there's only one team left that is undefeated. The Golden Valley High school football team won its first two games of the season. The Grizzlies beat Antelope Valley convincingly, 35-6, behind an outstanding game from quarterback Brandon Contreras. He threw four touchdown passes, two to Jamison Torres. Contreras also threw touchdown passes to Jesse Rodriguez and Jordan Flores, and scored a rushing touchdown for Golden Valley. Torres also scored a rushing touchdown and had an interception on defense. He has scored 5 touchdowns in the first 2 games of the season. Golden Valley will go for its third win in a row against Lancaster. The Canyon High football team won its first game of the season in impressive fashion, 38-14 over Buena. Quarterback Sebastian Martinez had a big game with 3 touchdown passes. Carson Soraya had 2 touchdown catches, and Joshua Wagner had the third. Keyshawn Wooten and Aiden Aiden Magno each scored a rushing touchdown in a balanced Canyon offensive attack. And the Canyon defense came up with some big plays too. Miles McCrory returned a fumble for a touchdown to add to the scoring. Canyon led 18-0 at halftime, and Buena lost to a Foothill League team for the second week in a row. Saugus beat Buena in the opening week of the season. Canyon heads to Cathedral High next. Cathedral is undefeated at 2-0. Canyon coach Ken Holzenbach talked about Canyon winning its first game of the season and preparing to play Cathedral.
Ken Holzenbach. His team won their first game of the season over Buena, and it was a pretty impressive game. The Canyon football team scored 38 points, I think 6 touchdowns, right?
Correct.
6 touchdowns, and it was a well-balanced scoring attack too, and everything else. So you tell me, how does it feel to win your first game of the season, and how are the kids responding after winning their first game of the season?
Yeah, so one of the things that we're continually focusing on is just making sure to get better each week, right? We wanted to see growth when we went from our scrimmage to our first game. We wanted to see growth from our first game to our second game, and kids have responded well to that, and they obviously played a good game against Buena. And it was nice seeing us be able to get out there and have a balanced attack where we're able to throw the ball as well as run the ball. And then obviously our defense played well as well.
Was there anybody during the game that stood out for you? Did anybody have a particularly impressive game for you?
Well, certainly it starts with Sebastian Martinez, our quarterback. Obviously for us to have that balanced attack, he had to play well, and he did. Carson Soria had 2 touchdowns for us, which was nice. And then on the defensive side, we had Miles McCrory with a fumble recovery that he ran back for a touchdown as well, which was a pretty impressive play. It was nice.
Right. So, yeah, the offense obviously scored a ton of points and scored a lot of points. The defense played particularly well, too. Can you talk to me about how the defense played, and was anybody on defense that stood out for you?
Yeah, so we have Evan Watts at the end. He continually shows up for us every week. You put on film, and he does some great things out there. Our middle linebacker, Richie Toscano, was flying around all over the field. And again, Miles McCrory, was again another leader out there with a lot of tackles and was near the ball all the time.
So your next game is against Cathedral. I saw Cathedral's 2-0. They're undefeated. What do you know about Cathedral, and how is the team preparing for that game?
Yeah, the Cathedral has a lot of athletes all over the field. They're a good team. We look forward to the challenge, though. We made sure to set up our pre-league schedule this year that we're facing opponents we feel are going to help prepare us for league, and Cathedral certainly falls in that category. So we're looking forward to lining up and playing them on Friday.
The West Ranch football team won its first game of the season, 35-6 over Cleveland High in Reseda. Quarterback Cooper Jackson threw 3 touchdown passes. Justice Morris and Aiden Lynch each scored rushing touchdowns. Charlie Samuelson, Andy Hamilton, and Gabe Cotty got touchdown passes. Max Piccolino had 1 sack, and added to his season total, he has 5.5 sacks in 2 games so far. West Ranch plays a winless Antelope Valley team. Antelope Valley lost to Golden Valley last week. The Hart football team won its first game of the season 38-19 against Burroughs of Burbank. Hart receiver Parker Maxwell scored 2 touchdowns. He caught 8 passes for 199 yards and was the favorite target of quarterback Jacob Paisano in the whole game. Paisano had a big game too, passing for 232 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also scored a rushing touchdown. Running back Zach Rogozic gained 123 yards and scored 2 touchdowns on the ground. Next up for Hart is Paraclete, which is coming off a 52-13 loss to Lusinger. The Saugus football team lost its first game of the season in a heartbreaker 32-24 to Oak Park. With 2 minutes left in the game, Saugus, down by 8 points, drove inside the 5-yard line and had a 1st and goal. Oak Park stopped Saugus on the goal line on 3 goal line plays and held on to win the game. Saugus running back Ty Hall cut the Oak Park lead to 8 points with the touchdown in the 4th quarter, but that was as close as Saugus would get to winning the game. Saugus will look to rebound against the winless 0-2 Camarillo team in its next game. The Castaic football team lost its first game of the season 48-12 against Calabasas. Calabasas led 28-6 at halftime. Castaic had a hard time containing running back Kane Miller from Calabasas. He scored 4 touchdowns and rushed for 120 yards. Monty Coleman had one of the few bright spots for Castaic, scoring on a kickoff return in the second half. Castaic plays San Joaquin Memorial in its next game. Valencia High lost to Santa Barbara in an ugly game, 47-23. Valencia is 0-2 for the first time since 2015 and let this one slip away after halftime. The Vikings committed 4 turnovers and were outscored 30-7 in the second half. Valencia led Santa Barbara 17-16 at halftime. Running back Brian Bonner rushed for 162 yards and scored 2 touchdowns. He has scored 5 touchdowns in the first 2 games of the season. Quarterback Brady Bredhauer added a rushing touchdown, but he also threw two interceptions that led to a second half Santa Barbara comeback. Valencia will look for its first win of the season against Murrieta High next.
All right. So thank you, Tim, for that. So let's talk about the NFL. So the Rams traded linebacker Ernest Jones to the Tennessee Titans at the end of the preseason, and it left a huge hole in the defense. And I think we covered this in the last episode. But the Rams made a lot of changes with the loss of Jones and the addition of 2 rookies, first rounder Jared Verse and second rounder Braden Fisk. So the defensive coordinator, Chris Shula, said Jones was an important part of the Rams team that won a Super Bowl in 2021. He was also important in Shula's development as a coach. He talked about his relationship with Jones developed and what it means to the Rams now that he's gone. The defense will look much different without Jones. So combined with the retirement of defensive tackle Aaron Donald, the Rams defense is going to have to adjust to new roles and new leadership. One of those players who is expected to provide leadership is Troy Reeder. He is making his second stint with the Rams. He was also teammates with Jones and Donald during the Super Bowl season with the Rams. He talked about how much the team is going to miss Jones and how much he is going to miss not playing alongside him.
Speaking of changes, what you learned, if anything, from Ernest? And it looks like you're kind of the next guy up to take that spot. How does that feel to kind of step into that role?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to miss E. He's one of my best buddies on the team, and just kind of trusting and the process and how things unfold every year, and that coach is going to do the right thing that puts us in the best position to win week in and week out, and ultimately have the best team by the end of the year. So going to miss him a lot. Learned a lot from him leadership wise, and we have different play styles, but I think there was a lot of fun we had, especially real early on when Ernest as a rookie and me in my third year was we were just bouncing things off of each other. There were things he did well coming in that I was like, man, like I can learn a little bit from him. And then he was learning stuff from me just as a 3-year vet with a lot of experience. And when I was able to come back last year, it was kind of just picked up where we left off and had a lot of fun in our room. We got a great room of just human beings in general. And we're going to miss him a lot.
So the Rams opened the NFL season against the Lions in Detroit. And finally, let's talk about Major League Baseball. So the Dodgers won 3 of 4 games against the Diamondbacks in Arizona and added to their lead in the National League West standings. Freddie Freeman and Teoscar Hernandez had a big game in the final game of the series. Freeman hit 2 home runs and drove in 5 runs. Hernandez went 5 for 5 with a double and triple and scored 2 runs. The Dodgers won the 4th and final game of the series 11-6. Shohei Ohtani joined the fun too. He went 2 for 4, scored 2 runs and stole 3 bases. He is closing in on a 50-50 season, 50 home runs and 50 stolen bases. He has 46 stolen bases, a career high, and 44 home runs with 24 games left to play. So the Dodgers went 5-2 against the Diamondbacks and Baltimore Orioles and are 83-55 after 138 games. The Dodgers have a 5-game lead over the San Diego Padres and a 6-game lead over the Diamondbacks in the National League West standings. But in the first game of the series against the Diamondbacks, starter Clayton Kershaw hurt his big toe in the first inning and was knocked out of the game. He landed on the injured list, another blow to an injury-riddled pitching staff. So 3 of the top Dodgers starters are on the injured list in the stretch run to the playoffs. Hart High grad Tyler Glasnow and Yoshinobu Yamamoto are still working their way back from injuries, and now Kershaw will need time to recover from a bad toe. The Dodgers travel to Anaheim for a 2-game series against the Angels before hosting the Cleveland Guardians for a weekend series at Dodgers Stadium. All right, so that's our show. So tune in next week for more discussions about the news from Santa Clarita. You can listen to us on the radio at KQRU 107.9 FM at 9 on Saturday mornings. You can also watch us on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, and listen to us on SantaClaritaStar.com, wherever you listen to podcasts. So leave us a comment and be sure to subscribe to Santa Clarita Weekly Online. Thanks for listening. Have a great week.
Thank you for listening to Santa Clarita Weekly. You can watch the show on Santa Clarita Star's YouTube channel and Facebook page, as well as listen in on the radio at KQRU 107.9. Visit SantaClaritaStar.com for more content and tune in right here to KQRU 107.9. A new voice for Santa Clarita.
Every week for Santa Clarita, Tim and Sage on the airwaves. We're here to share local headlines and sportsmen. We've got it all, bringing you the heartbeat of this S-town we call our home. Santa Clarita Weekly, catch us on the radio. We've got your show. The latest cricket sounds, you know. Chasing 2 touchdowns, you know. It's the place to be. Santa Clarita Weekly. Turn the dial to us. Get the news that matters most. Sports highlights, headlines. We're coast to coast. From breaking news to game day cheer, where the voice is loud and clear. Your hometown vibe right here. Santa Clarita Weekly, catch us on the radio. We've got your show, the latest cricket sounds, you know. Chasing 2 touchdowns, you know. It's the place to be. Santa Clarita Weekly. From Monday to Friday, every day's a new play. With Tim and Sage, we stay. Yuck up to airway